evil.
Big evil.
Big evil.
What did you do to earn it?
Can't say. Statute of time limitations haven't run out on that yet.
Me and Evil, we was in the pen together. So Evil came up to me, and Sinister from Swan, and Evil, all of them, they was doing their thing, worshiping the devil.
Clemon Johnson, better known as Big Evil, was one of the wildest gangsters to ever come out of Los Angeles.
One of LA's most infamous shot callers happens to be in the county jail, fighting prior murder convictions. His real name is Clemon Johnson, but he's known as Big Evil.
Cops described him as the coldest, most ruthless killer the city had ever seen. And think about it, in a place with over 100,000 active gang members.
What did you do to earn it?
Can't say.
What would someone have to do to earn a title like that? Big Evil was the definition of a savage.
In the 80s and 90s, Johnson was a notorious leader of the 89 Family Bloods gang. Police have linked him to 20 murders and called him the most cold-blooded killer in the city.
He officially admitted to at least 13 murders, but police believe the real number was well over 20. Nobody was safe, not even witnesses.
I mean, Evil was a serial killer.
No doubt.
And I chased that motherfucker from Russell Elementary all the way over to here.
Allegedly, though.
Well, I mean, you don't get serial killer if you got somebody else killing somebody.
Yeah.
As the shot caller for the 89 Family Swan Bloods, Big Evil helped turn his crew into one of the most feared in LA.
When you say they the most wanted gang over in there, we beef with everything.
Okay, well, look, let's just deal with arrests, convictions, and death, people sitting on death.
When he was active, the murder rate in Family Swan territory was 9 times higher than the rest of the city. Just to put it in perspective, if the whole city had the same murder rate as Family Swan territory, Louisiana would have been seeing over 22,000 murders a year.
Now, I always say that the Neighborhood Families is probably the most active gang in LA history, pound for all the guys that went to death row or caught murder cases.
Let's dive deeper into his story. Clemon Damone Johnson was born on October 15, 1967 in Los Angeles. He actually had the kind of childhood a lot of people in the streets could only dream about. 2 loving parents, Aileen and Clemon Johnson Sr., who raised him in a 3-bedroom house on 88th Street. The place was a white house with a big porch and a backyard that had a pigeon coop where Clemon, his 2 older half-brothers, 2 younger brothers, and a whole crew of neighborhood kids would hang out and play. It was the kind of scene you'd expect in a Norman Rockwell painting, especially those summer afternoons when Aileen would pass out Kool-Aid to all the boys and sometimes even invite the neighbor kids over for dinner. Before eating, the whole family would say grace together. Neighbors remember young Clemon as a sweet kid with a big smile, always ready to help ladies carry their groceries. He'd scan the bags, grab the heaviest one, and carefully make his way to the porch, peeking through the groceries to avoid tripping on steps or curbs. He was even a Boy Scout, part of Troop 374, and stacked up a bunch of merit badges. One of his proudest was the Survival Badge. Like most kids growing up with brothers, Clemon learned how to throw hands early, toughening up through backyard scraps, and learning how to fight through the pain without crying. Back then, South Central's gang scene was still pretty tame compared to what it would later become. Fights were mostly fists, maybe the occasional tire iron, and knives were rare. Violence hardly ever touched people's homes. But everything started to shift in 1970 when Clemon was just 3 years old. Less than a mile from his house, a few young men started calling themselves the Crips, and nothing in South Central would ever be the same again. It wasn't long before families were sleeping on floors to dodge bullets, and babies were getting caught in the crossfire. LA, once known as the City of Angels, quickly gained a new title, the gang capital of America. In response to the rise of the Crips, different sets like the Pirates, Bounty Hunters, Brims, and Swans came together and formed what would eventually be known as the Bloods. Over time, some of the biggest Crip sets, like the East Coast Crips, Avalon Gardens Crips, and the Kitchen Crips, surrounded Clemon's neighborhood on 3 sides. That pressure cooker environment gave birth to a new blood set, the 89 Family Bloods. One blazing afternoon when Clemon was about 8 years old, he was sitting on a fire hydrant at 84th in town when a car rolled up. A bunch of teenagers jumped out and opened fire, killing his friend Daryl right in front of him. It was Clemon's first up-close, numbing experience with death, and it wouldn't be the last. Within a year, he witnessed another boy get murdered. After a while, violence just became part of the background. like the sound of planes coming into LAX. And soon enough, Kleeman found himself getting pulled into it too. Whenever word got back home that he'd been fighting, Kleeman knew exactly what was coming, a beating from his parents. But he never held it against them. He says he actually enjoyed his childhood. And by all accounts, even when he was getting into schoolyard fights, he was still a smart, curious kid with a big smile and a certain charm. His parents made an effort to give him and his brothers a real childhood, taking them camping all over the West, sometimes even bringing along some of the neighborhood boys from the pigeon coop. Kleeman especially loved Crater Lake in Oregon, a calm, beautiful spot hidden inside an old volcano. The Johnsons weren't rich, but they spoiled their boys as much as they could. While most kids got roller skates for Christmas, the Johnson boys got go-karts. But no amount of love could shield them from what was happening around them. By the time Kleeman hit 12 or 13 and was going to Drew Middle School near Watts, he was running into young Crips constantly. It was around 7th grade that Kleeman first tasted the rush of being seen as a badass. A bigger, older kitchen Crip had been bullying some younger kids. Kleeman wasn't having it. He rushed the dude, got him down, and smashed his face against a basketball pole until blood splattered across the court. After that, he wasn't just another kid anymore. Other boys looked up to him. Some of the girls noticed too. The battle for Kleeman's life had officially started, nearly 2 decades before he'd find himself facing the death penalty. From that point on, it was like his family and the streets were locked in a tug-of-war over him. His parents were pulling with love and steady guidance, but the '89 family Bloods were yanking back hard, fueled by adrenaline, power, and fear. Eventually, the gang won. Kleeman started hanging out with older, tougher men, most of them ex-cons, and they welcomed him with open arms. Evil was a great street fighter, said his half-brother Ricky Parker. He was good with his hands, elbows, head, feet, knees, even his teeth. Even his rivals gave him props. A kitchen Crip who fought him once said, he could really throw down. It takes more than just a gun to get respect. But by the late 70s, fists weren't enough anymore. Even the best fighters started carrying guns. Evil was no different. He became just as comfortable shooting someone as he was stomping them out with his hands. He even put together a crew of the most savage family members and called them the 88 Monsters, basically his own commando squad. Even though he still lived at home and showed respect to his parents, out on the streets, his anger was something else entirely. Defending his outnumbered hood became his obsession. When Evil gets mad, it's something to check out, Blood, said one of the Swans. It was scary. He'd be getting like a hurricane, and you can't stop him when he want to jack up someone. You know that he ain't just talking like so many other brothers. If he said it, I would say to myself, someone gonna die tonight. Thanks in large part to Evil, both the LAPD and the DA's hardcore gang unit eventually labeled the '89 Family Bloods the most dangerous small gang in LA. Part of the reason they were so violent was because they were surrounded by much bigger gangs on 3 sides, said a South Bureau homicide detective Christopher Barling. To hold on to their little bit of territory, '89 had to fight harder and nastier than anybody else. Detective Thomas Matthew straight up called Kleeman the most cold-blooded killer in the city. In fact, Matthew basically saw himself as Evil's personal enemy. One thing he pointed out about the '89 family was how fast they moved when it came to payback. They were known for quick retaliation, he said. Whenever there was a shooting in '89 territory, we'd rush over to the rival's hood and post up, hoping to catch them coming for revenge. Half the time, they had already handled business before we even got there. But Evil wasn't just quick with the trigger. Detectives said he was a real street strategist. Most gang members react in the heat of the moment. You shoot us, we shoot you, said Detective Barling. But Evil was different. He would actually sit down, think it through, and plan it out. Over time, Evil built a reputation not just for violence but for beating murder cases, and even allegedly ordering hits while locked up. He even went as far as putting out a hit on Detective Matthew himself. For a while, the threat was so real that the LAPD had a SWAT team shadowing Matthew everywhere he went. Meanwhile, Evil's name started to grow into full-on street legend. Barling remembered a wild story from 1991 that people, Crips, Bloods, and cops alike, still talk about today. Evil planned an attack on the Avalon Gardens housing projects, but he didn't just roll up blindly. First, he had his guys carry out 2 separate shootings to pull police away from the area. Then he had stolen cars ready for fast getaways. He sent people in from the sides, flanking the place. Finally, he led about 10 guys right into the middle of the project on foot, and they let off more than 200 rounds. Only 1 person died, but it could have been way worse. It was pure chaos and pure strategy. Moves like that didn't go unnoticed. By 1994, the LAPD's South Bureau Homicide Squad had had enough. They put together the 89 Family Task Force, a team of detectives, FBI agents, and folks from the district attorney's office, with one mission: take evil down for good. But there was one major problem. They needed witnesses who would actually testify, and nobody wanted to go against Evil. He had been arrested for murder multiple times and somehow always beat the case. Word on the streets was clear: Evil was untouchable. "How many times you gonna get arrested for murder and get right back out?" said the ex-girlfriend of one of the 88 monsters. Everybody knew. If you snitched, you were dead. It was that simple. And there were real examples backing up the fear. In 1994, Gloria Lyons agreed to testify after seeing an 89 family member kill someone, and she was murdered. Georgia Denise Jones also testified in the same case. She ended up dead too. 2 years earlier, Albert Sutton was lined up to testify in another murder trial, and he got killed before he could take the stand. But eventually, detectives caught a break. In the Loggins and Burwatt murders, they found Freddie Jelks, a guy facing life in prison for his own case. Jelks agreed to flip. In court, he testified that Evil had ordered the killings. This time, the jury wasn't playing around. They convicted Evil and sent him straight to San Quentin's death row. As of 2023, reports said Big Evil had technically become eligible for parole after serving more than 25 years. But it doesn't look like he got it, because he's still sitting behind bars today.